Democratic candidate Kamala Harris warns of potential election chaos.
So make sure you fill out your ballot. I did mine. I'm going to put it in the mail. And we are going to make sure that we fight.
An Israeli occupation military report hints at a possible end to hostilities in Lebanon in 10 to 14 days. And Egyptian and French foreign ministers discuss immediate efforts for a ceasefire in Gaza and facilitating humanitarian aid. It's exactly 4 p.m. car local time and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in the United States, one day ahead of the presidential election.
We will build what I call an opportunity economy.
We will make America great.
We're ready to fight for it. As one people, we are moving forward.
We will make America safe again.
As she cast her vote by mail, Democratic candidate Kamala Harris warned of potential elections chaos. Harris has pledged to work towards unity, emphasizing the current election's impact on the nation's future. Speaking at a rally in Michigan, she outlined plans for tax cuts and affordable health care, especially for seniors, promising to address press issues without political motives.
I actually just filled out my mail ballot, so I have a...
Democratic nominee Kamala Harris has made her final pitch in East Lansing, Michigan, addressing the state's Arab American community with remarks on civilian casualties in Gaza and tensions between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon.
And I want to say, this year has been difficult, given the scale of death and destruction in Gaza, and given the civilian casualties and displacement in Lebanon. It is devastating. And as president, I will do everything in my power to end the war in Gaza. To bring home the hostages, end the suffering in Gaza, ensure Israel is secure, and ensure the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, freedom, security, and self-determination.
On the other hand, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has promised party time after Tuesday's election if he defeats Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. He emphasized immigration issues during his final rally in Georgia.
But all I can say is on Tuesday, just go out and vote, and we're going to close this thing out, and it's going to be party time. It's going to be party time. And this is really all you need to know. Kamala broke it, and I'll fix it, and we'll do it very quickly.
The latest NBC News polls have shown a tie between the Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and the Republican Donald Trump, with each securing 49% of registered voters supported. Conducted from October 30th to November the 2nd, the poll surveyed 1,000 voters. It reveals Harris's growing support among Democrats, especially for her advocacy for the Middle East class, or for middle class rather. Trump, meanwhile, banks on his economic strengths and positive views from his previous terms.
I think that it is a tactic. It is meant to distract from the fact that...
A recent poll by the New York Times and Sian College has revealed mounting concerns over the state of democracy in the United States. More than 3/4 of respondents cited the spread of lies and refusal to accept as the in this election. Some voters voiced worries over a potential repeat of the 2020 election turmoil. The United States electoral system balances representation, though the House and Senate, ensuring diverse state voices in Congress.
The Union of America's 50 states, which shaped the nation's unique electoral system, was not easily achieved. The U.S. Congress, comprising the House of Representatives and the Senate, operates with distinct election processes and representation structures. Every 2 years, American citizens elect members of the House of Representatives. This structure evolved over time, culminating in the 1787 Connecticut Compromise, which established population-based representation in the House and equal representation in the Senate, with 2 senators per state. House elections start with party primaries within each district, followed by a general election every even-numbered November. Representatives serve 2-year terms, focusing on federal legislation, revenue bills, and other initiatives, with the House Speaker leading as the majority party figure. Senators, originally appointed by state legislatures, have been directly elected by popular vote since the 17th Amendment in 1913. When the U.S. reached 50 states in 1959, the Senate's membership was set at 100. Senate elections occur in 3 phases, electing roughly 1/3 of the body every 2 years, 33 senators in the first 2 cycles and 34 in the third. This staggered 6-year term structure ensures consistent representation, with 1/3 of Senate seats open for election biennially. If no vice presidential candidate secures an electoral college majority, the Senate elects from the top 2 candidates, with the vice president serving as Senate president. Held alongside House elections, Senate elections involve vital roles in approving treaties, confirming Supreme Court justice, federal judges, ambassadors, and other executive nominees. This unique electoral system and power-sharing arrangement contribute to America's enduring political stability.
For more analysis, we now move to Rihem Morsi in our newsroom. Rihem?
Thank you, Rana. To help us understand the U.S. election process so far, we're joined from Washington by a member of the Democratic Party, Dr. Shireen Nagar. Thank you so much for joining us here on Qnews.
Thank you for having me.
Firstly, let's start off with what are the key issues currently shaping public opinion in the United States, and how do these concerns influence the voter behavior when it comes to the elections?
The number one concern is the economy, of course. And what's appalling is misleading numbers in the media. I'm just going to talk numbers. Biden, during the Biden era, the economy grew by 2.5%. It's the highest since Clinton era in the 90s. And we added in the economy almost 19 million jobs. And that is the highest in 60 years. Also, compared to the Europe, growing economy growing 2.5%, it's a great sign that our economy is on the right track. One thing also, women's right. The talk in the rally, he said that women want it or not, he's going to be the protector of women. What does that mean? It just goes both ways. It's scary for us as women that someone or the government would decide for us what to do with our body, impose their opinion and their laws, and it happened before when they imposed the politicians impose their ideas on education.
Well, what about the idea of also, how does the outcome of recent elections impact the domestic policy and overall political landscape in the U.S.? You spoke about the idea that the economy is the top thing that concerns the Americans, but how could these elections sort of impact domestic issues?
One thing that we have not seen here in the United States before during the election, especially in the after November 5th, is the deployment of National Guard. You can see the National Guard, local law enforcement is everywhere in the Capitol trying to protect the house of the Vice President and also the officials and the election workers. We have not seen this before, and we're worried about the impact of the elections results tomorrow. Everybody says if Trump won, things will be okay, but if Harris wins, it will be, as he said, a sea of blood. This year is impacting us. The recent information tells us that some, and the researchers, some Americans actually lost sleep over it. They're anxious. They're worried about what's going to happen.
So would you say that the American public in general are very polarized at this time
yes,
because of, how could this sort of be resolved? How could like a bipartisan action happen towards healing the American public?
Well, we were hoping that Harris will pull through and will unite all the Americans under one wise president, not a divider like Trump says. Like always, he tried to say the other side, the enemy within. And this is very decisive, very dangerous quotation, and has a big impact on the American lives, especially for his supporters. I mean, he's trying to mobilize them to go against the law, against the order that we always were proud of here in the United States.
Can we talk a bit about foreign policy? Foreign policy is also one of those contentious topics that has affected the American voter, specifically, the Arab American community. How have both tackled, the Arab American community? How can they sort of attract them? Because I know a lot of Arab Americans are thinking of, voting either third party or not voting at all. How has Harris sort of tried to, bring them back into the fold?
Harris promised within 14 days she's going to try very hard to end the conflict in the Middle East. We can see that Netanyahu is dragging his feet, hoping that Trump would win. We know the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu very well, and we know that Trump always says, do whatever necessary to control or to have to, guarantee security Israel. And also, on the other hand, I'm talking security and economy. If Trump will go through with the tariff that he's going to impose, it will cost the whole world, not only the United States, $7 trillion, and that will impact the international economy as well. Biden, in the recent days, have threatened that he would stop military aid to Israel unless they open up channels for aid to the people in Gaza. It's just we do remember that when Trump was in office, he closed the PLO office here in D.C. and moved the capital to Jerusalem, which is against international law. So this is all should be a reminder that we should not. The funny thing is when the Muslim and the Arab people representative met with Trump, the promise that he made that he will try to end the war. I don't know how. He did not say how. Is he going to give Netanyahu a green light to do whatever he wants, or what's going to happen exactly? He just promised him also a position in his cabinet for some of the Muslim and the Arab Americans. We already know that Harris has already have some Arab Americans and Muslims in her campaign. So, it's still neck to neck. Still, we don't know where the opinion will sway. But we're hoping that all the Americans will be united. At least they're exercising their rights to vote. And that's the most important element.
Okay, my final question here for you is, what role do early voting and mail-in voting play in influencing voter turnout, and how might these methods impact the results of upcoming elections, especially in swing states? We've also seen, untraditionally, Republicans doing the early voting thing. Has this, or do you think that this could possibly affect the election outcome?
So far, almost 41 million Americans have already voted. And I know for sure that Trump before used to discourage people from voting earlier. But I guess this time he wants everybody to go down and vote. So far, the swing states have a good turnout, a lot of people, long lines. They're all eager and willing to express their opinion. And that's really going to impact the results. We have not seen that big turnout when it comes to the early voting, which that's the implication that it will be very busy the days ahead, today and tomorrow. And how would that impact the results? We're hoping it's going to be the biggest turnout in the history of the United States.
Okay, that was a member of the Democratic Party from Washington, Dr. Shireen Nagar. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you so much for joining us. And now back to you, Rana, in the studio.
Thank you, Rahim. And moving now on to the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
The Israeli Occupation Army has released video footage showing soldiers, tanks and armored vehicles taking part in a ground assault on the outskirts of southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Lebanese Health Ministry reported the death toll for Israeli attacks on Lebanon has now increased to 2,986, with 13,402 injured since October 2023. In the past 24 hours alone, 18 people have been killed and 83 others wounded. An Israeli occupation military report has hinted at a possible end to hostilities in Lebanon in 10 to 14 days. The report speculated on a buffer zone along the southern Lebanese border, referencing extensive damage inflicted on 11 nearby villages. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel-Ati has discussed regional tensions with Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi. Emphasizing the risks of a regional war, Abdel-Ati stressed the need for Lebanon to elect a unifying president and avoid external interference, affirming Egypt's support for Lebanon's sovereignty. Iran's foreign ministry has warned that ongoing violence in Gaza and Lebanon is destabilizing the region. The Iranian foreign ministry further condemned Israel's action and cautioned against attacks on Iran. The ministry also criticized Germany's decision to close Iranian consulates, saying it harms bilateral relations.
آمریکا در طول سالهای گذشته در مقابله با تحریم‌های آمریکا هیچ حد و مرزی در عزم ما برای دفاع از خودمون وجود نداره.
Moving on to the latest developments in Gaza. Israeli settlers have launched twin attacks on the Palestinian city of Al-Bira and the town of Deir Dibwen, setting 20 vehicles ablaze. Palestinian sources reported that settlers fired shots, preventing civil defense from extinguishing fires. Separately, Israeli forces sealed off Qalandiya village, barring farmers from accessing olive groves. The Israeli occupation forces have minor and former detainees in a wide-ranging overnight raid. The latest detentions bring the total since the Gaza war began to over 11,600, with reported violence and property damage accompanying the operations. The World Health Organization has reported that 6 people, including 4 children, were injured in an Israeli drone strike targeting a polio vaccination site in Gaza. The organization announced plans to launch the 3rd phase of its polio vaccination campaign in northern Gaza on Saturday. The campaign, initially scheduled for October the 23rd, has been delayed due to heavy bombardments, mass evacuation orders, and the lack of sustained humanitarian pauses. According to the official Palestinian news agency, WAFA, and the World Health Organization, the attack took place at the Sheikh Radwan Health Center in Gaza City, where an Israeli military drone reportedly struck the facility. Israeli airstrikes targeted homes near Kamel Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, killing and injuring several Palestinians. Furthermore, 5 were injured in a separate artillery attack on El Mufti land north of Nusrayat camp. Reports indicate another shelling in northern Gaza, with additional casualties in Zaytuna and Nusrayat. Palestinian media sources have reported over 1,800 fatalities and 4,000 injuries in northern Gaza as Israeli forces continue to bar humanitarian aid. The blockade has left 3,800 aid trucks stranded, devastating civilians. Hospitals have been destroyed, medical staff have been targeted, and infrastructure obliterated. Egypt's foreign minister held a call with his French counterpart, discussing immediate efforts for a ceasefire in Gaza and facilitating humanitarian aid. Egypt reaffirmed its rejection of Israeli measures blocking aid and emphasizing the need to end the occupation and establish Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we have been covering.
Yes, this race is going to be...
Democratic candidate Kamala Harris warns of potential election chaos.
I know you are. So make sure you fill out your ballot. I did mine. I'm going to put it in the mail.
An Israeli occupation military report hints at a possible end to hostilities in Lebanon in 10 to 14 days. And Egypt and France foreign ministers discuss immediate efforts for a ceasefire in Gaza and facilitating humanitarian aid. This concludes our news bulletin of the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here on Q News.